Welcome to the cutting edge of applied neurobiology. Today, we're not talking about simple mood boosts. We're talking about the molecular machinery of resilience, the fundamental ability to adapt, recover, and sustain performance under extreme pressure. We are diving deep into serotonin, a molecule often oversimplified as the happiness chemical. In truth, serotonin is the neurochemical modulator of emotional stabilization and cognitive flexibility. It's the gatekeeper that determines whether you can roll with the punches or become paralyzed by the relentless inner critic. For the elite athlete, the Wall Street titan, or the dedicated creator, the true performance killer isn't physical exhaustion, it's the emotional rigidity that manifests as paralyzing guilt, consuming grief, or the destructive cognitive loop known in psychiatry as anti-self-confabulation, the brain's toxic narrative that everything is bad, nothing will improve, and the self is inadequate. This video is your blueprint. We will translate complex neurobiology into a 10-minute behavioral toolkit, precise, science-backed protocols that can leverage your body's existing hardware to shift your serotonin function from low-flow rigidity to high-flow resilience. You don't need years of therapy or a prescription to start rewriting your emotional trajectory. You need 10 minutes, targeted action, and a precise understanding of the chemical levers at your disposal. Let's dispel the myth. Serotonin is not primarily about feeling happy. Its true function is one of modulation. It's manufactured largely in the raphe nuclei, a dense cluster of neurons deep in the brainstem. From there, it projects throughout the brain, acting as a volume knob for your emotional life. When serotonin is functioning optimally, you don't simply feel euphoric, you feel appropriately emotional. You can feel sadness over a loss without that sadness collapsing into a life-altering depressive state. You can experience a performance failure without the guilt spiraling into self-hatred. It allows for cognitive flexibility, the ability to pivot and see a new opportunity after a setback. But when this system is disrupted, the volume knob gets stuck. You enter a state of emotional rigidity. Grief feels permanent. Guilt feels deserved. This rigidity is the root of the anti-self-confabulation. The brain starts confabulating, creating stories about your past and future that are relentlessly negative and self-deprecating, often disconnected from reality. This is the neurochemical signature of a system that cannot pivot. The SSRI context and the plasticity gap. We know the pharmaceutical approach, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, work by preventing the rapid reabsorption of serotonin back into the presynaptic neuron. They don't increase the total amount of serotonin. They increase its efficacy at the synapse. But here's the mystery that baffled researchers. SSRIs increase serotonin efficacy almost immediately, yet patients rarely report relief from depressive symptoms for 2 to 4 weeks. Why the delay? Because serotonin requires plasticity. The chemical change is the ignition, but the rewiring of the brain's emotional circuitry takes time. Those 2 to 4 weeks are the time required for new, healthier neural connections to form. This understanding is crucial. Our goal with behavioral tools is to provide the consistent low-dose ignition, chemical nudge, and the environment, physiological calm, necessary for that positive plasticity to occur, but without the side effects of chronic pharmacology. The power of these techniques is their brevity and their precision. They are designed to directly influence the core physiological systems that govern serotonin function, the circadian rhythm, the autonomic nervous system, and inflammation. Tool 1. Targeted light exposure, 10 minutes, the mood anchor. This is the single most important and non-negotiable step for long-term emotional regulation. Serotonin production is tightly coupled with your circadian rhythm, your body's 24-hour clock. The science. Light exposure, specifically bright light early in the morning, activates the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the master clock in your brain. This signals to your entire system that the day has begun. Crucially, it sets the timer for the evening release of melatonin, which is synthesized from serotonin, and more relevantly, regulates the release of cortisol. A common physiological signature of major emotional lows or stress burnout is the late-day or evening cortisol spike. Instead of cortisol peaking healthily in the morning, giving you drive and energy, it peaks at 9 p.m. or later, destroying sleep architecture, causing the classic early morning awakening, and suppressing optimal serotonin function. The 10-minute protocol. First 60 minutes of waking. Go outside and expose your eyes to natural sunlight. Duration. Aim for 10 minutes of direct exposure. Even on cloudy days, this is more potent than indoor light. Mechanism. No window glass or sunglasses. The goal is to stimulate the photoreceptors in your eye that communicate directly with the SCN. The high performer link. Top CEOs and elite military personnel religiously follow this protocol. It is not about feeling good, it's about preempting the stress response and ensuring the cortisol curve is set correctly for drive, not anxiety. A well-set circadian rhythm is the foundation upon which every other serotonin-boosting tool is built. Tool 2. Rhythmic locomotion. 10 minutes. The rerouter. We often think of exercise as a massive, high-intensity commitment. For serotonin function, the opposite is often true. We want to leverage rhythmic, non-strenuous movement. The science. The RAFE nuclei, the serotonin production center, is highly sensitive to the state of your body. Rhythmic, repetitive movement, such as walking, stationary cycling, or even certain forms of light dance, sends a calming, predictable signal up to the brainstem. This repetitive action is thought to modulate the output of the RAFE nuclei in a gentle, non-overwhelming way, creating an environment of safety and predictability. Furthermore, rhythmic exercise, even light exercise, is highly effective at shuttling kynurenine into the muscles. Kynurenine is a problematic substance formed when inflammation, linked to chronic stress, diverts tryptophan, the serotonin precursor, down a neurotoxic pathway instead of the serotonin pathway. By sequestering kynurenine in the muscle, you effectively clear the path for tryptophan to be converted into serotonin. The 10-minute protocol. Activity. Choose a rhythmic, repetitive, low-impact activity, walking, light stationary bike, or using a very light elliptical. Duration. 10 minutes of continuous, unbroken rhythm. Mental focus. Do not use this time for high-stress thinking. Focus on the physical sensation of your feet moving or your breath. The high performer link. Studies on top chess players and competitive gamers, individuals in highly cognitive sedentary environments, show that brief, rhythmic walks during breaks are essential. They use this movement not to burn calories, but to flush cognitive sludge and reestablish a state of calm focus, a direct reflection of modulating the RAFE nuclei and stress response. Tool 3. The physiological sigh. 3 minutes. The instant calm. This is the fastest, most potent, and most direct method to influence your autonomic nervous system and create a neurochemical environment conducive to serotonin function. The science. When you are under stress, your serotonin system is fighting uphill against a flood of catecholamines, norepinephrine and epinephrine. To give serotonin a chance, you must immediately downshift the fight or flight response. The physiological sigh is the brain's own built-in mechanism for rapidly resetting the autonomic nervous system. It involves 2 inhales followed by a long, slow exhale. The double inhale maximizes the inflation of the tiny air sacs, alveoli, in your lungs. The subsequent long exhale is what activates the vagal nerve, the core information highway of the parasympathetic, rest and digest system. Vagal activation instantly slows the heart rate and decreases overall physiological arousal. When your body feels safe, your neurochemistry is free to regulate. The 3-minute protocol. Cycle. Inhale deeply through the nose, then immediately take a short second sip of air to fill the lungs completely. Release. Exhale slowly and completely through the mouth or nose with an audible sigh. Duration. Repeat this cycle for 3 to 5 minutes. The high performer link. The physiological sigh is a core component of resiliency training taught to elite military units, including Navy SEALs and Special Forces. They use it mid-mission to instantly control their state, prevent emotional spiral, and maintain decision-making clarity under lethal pressure. If it works under fire, it will work for your emotional load. Tool 4. Nutritional Precursors, Chronic Strategy, the Inflammation Barrier. While not a 10-minute acute tool, this is the essential background strategy to ensure your body has the raw materials for serotonin synthesis and to remove the primary barrier, inflammation. The science of diversion. Serotonin is synthesized from the amino acid tryptophan, which we get from our diet. Under normal conditions, tryptophan is smoothly converted to serotonin. However, under conditions of chronic stress and inflammation, marked by high inflammatory cytokines like IL-6, TNF-alpha, and C-reactive protein, a biochemical enzyme called IDO, indolamine 2,3-dioxygenase, is activated. IDO diverts tryptophan away from the serotonin pathway and into the kynurenine pathway. This pathway ultimately produces quinolinic acid, a known neurotoxin and pro-depressive agent. You could ingest all the tryptophan in the world, but if your inflammation is high, it will be diverted into a pro-depressive state. The strategy: EPA omega-3's threshold. Goal: reduce chronic inflammation to clear the tryptophan pathway. Focus: increasing the intake of the eicosapentaenoic acid variety of omega-3s. Threshold: research suggests an effective minimum daily dose is 1,000 milligrams, 1 gram of EPA. Always check the EPA content, not just the total fish oil content. The high performer link. High-performance dietitians often prescribe high EPA intake not just for heart health, but as a cognitive and emotional stabilizing agent. They recognize that inflammation is a performance block, and clearing the serotonin pathway is non-negotiable for sustained focus and resilience. Tool 5. Pro-social micro-gestures, 10 minutes, the trust builder. This leverages the interconnectedness of human neurochemistry. Serotonin is often co-released with oxytocin, the bonding or trust molecule. Brief, meaningful connection is a subtle but powerful chemical shift. The science: acting pro-socially, expressing gratitude, offering genuine help, or having a brief, meaningful conversation triggers a minor acute release of both serotonin and oxytocin. This combination works to counteract the emotional isolation and negative self-focus that is the hallmark of the anti-self confabulation loop. The act of contributing to others or expressing authentic connection instantly broadens your perspective and chemically reinforces a sense of belonging and worth. The 10-minute protocol. Activity. Perform a simple pro-social gesture. Send an unexpected, genuine message of gratitude, not just a generic text. Spend 10 minutes actively listening, no phone, to a family member or colleague. Offer unrequested help. Duration. The act itself can be quick, but the feeling of connection should be authentic. The high performer link. The 10-minute team huddle is a common protocol in high-stakes industries, surgical teams, military, and elite tech teams. These huddles are often less about logistics and more about brief, authentic connection, gratitude for a job well done, and reinforcing group trust. This social neurochemical boost ensures that individual stress doesn't fracture the team's collective resilience. These 5 tools are not isolated remedies. They are a system. The 10-minute light exposure sets the circadian and cortisol foundation. The 10-minute rhythmic movement clears the neurotoxic kynurenine path. The 3-minute physiological sigh instantly lowers the physiological arousal that suppresses serotonin function. The EPA ensures raw materials are available. The pro-social gesture reinforces the emotional circuit. The cortisol trap. Remember, chronic stress, high cortisol, is the serotonin system's biggest enemy. It creates the inflammation and the hyperarousal that forces serotonin into a losing battle. Your 10-minute resets are designed to interrupt the cortisol cascade and prevent emotional escalation. The power of neuroplasticity. Every time you implement one of these 10-minute tools, you are using your behavior to deliver a chemical nudge to your brain. You are consistently firing the healthier, more flexible emotional circuits. Over time, the same 2 to 4 weeks observed with SSRIs, this behavioral consistency reinforces the new pathway, making it easier to return to a state of calm and resilience. You are literally rewiring your emotional baseline. This is not magic. This is applied neurobiology. Use the tools. Commit to the 10 minutes.